everything about today's topic. Right. I mean, it's just amazing. Right. So I'm going to, like in speaking, you're supposed to start with a joke or something like that. I know of a pastor that always does that. It drives me nuts. You know, but I'm going to start with reading, and then I'm going to ask you about examples in your life or questions you have about God's presence and God's watching over you. And then I have, if you know me, I have my own stories of having experienced that. So, I am the director of the Center for Attitudinal Healing in the Arts, and the language of Jerry Jampolsky just resonates with me. It just goes inside and it works for me. What's cool about the booklet, thank you, Linda, for sending it to me, is that there are 3 articles on each of the prayers, each of the affirmations, statements. So you have 3 different views of the issue. I think that is so healthy. So this resonates with me, and if it doesn't resonate with you, at least you guys have the right attitude of openness. So I love that. I love being here. So this is from his book, Shortcuts to God. Only 6 paragraphs, so won't be long. God goes with me wherever I go. It will be my intent to repeat this lesson throughout the day. God goes with me wherever I go. I will do my best to resist the temptation of my ego's voice, which tells me that I am alone in the world, rejected and abandoned. When we truly believe that there is no separation between ourselves and God, there is only oneness, one joined mind, then we not only have faith, but we know that God goes with us wherever we go. A shortcut to God is found by taking a leap of faith and letting go of the belief that we are separate minds, knowing instead that we are all integral parts of a whole. When we trust that God is within us, wherever we go, we no longer feel abandoned or lonely. Our worries, anxieties, and feelings of helplessness fade away. God's peace and our peace become one and the same. The peace, love, and happiness we experience in our lives is a natural offshoot of recognizing that we are all joined with God. We can manifest and experience that peace, regardless of the chaos that might be going on in our external lives. When we live in the past, there are many times that we continue to suffer anxiety, fear, depression, and a sense of helplessness because of our own feelings of inadequacy, lack of self-worth, attachments to anger, or self-condemnation. These feelings usually rise out of the often unrecognized emotions of believing we are alone and unloved. When we choose to erase the past, we then experience the presence of God. I'm going to read that one again. When we choose to erase the past, we then experience the presence of God. When we change our belief system to accept that we are never alone, but that God and God's abundant, unconditional love is with us all the time, we find that our sense of separation vanishes and we experience the oneness that is our birthright. The practicality of that, we're talking about our experience changing. when we choose to believe and live in exactly what you guys said over and over again in the beginnings here, is that there's an actual experiential change. And I'm so grateful for that. So how do you guys experience God's presence? I was told not to do that by Jeff, and I just did it. Okay. How do you guys experience God's presence? Is it real for you? Is it hard to say what it's like? Can someone share with us something about what it's like to them? Yes? Nature. Right. Exactly. When you're out of nature and you see so much life and so much beauty, and even though animals eat each other, the balance of it all remains. And one of my favorite things on Facebook is seeing how animals of different species love each other. It's so encouraging. Anything else? Yes. What? Promptings. Yes. When Attitudinal Healing became an international organization, Jerry Jampolsky called me and wanted to know what we were doing. So I told him about what we were doing. And he asked two questions. I've said this here before. Are you teaching them forgiveness? And are you teaching them to listen to their inner voice? If everything is out there, we're not present to experience what we need to experience, including listening to the Holy Spirit tell us what to do. Yes. Silent meditation. There's something in silence that allows whatever is there or coming to be perceived. For me, it's in listening in an attitudinal healing group. That's easier for me to be present if I'm listening to you with all of my attention, then there's something that opens up inside of me that I find myself more connected to me. The instruction in the Course in Miracles, for example, is to spend regular times in silent meditation, even to the point where later on in the lessons, you're supposed to do it every 20 minutes, even if it's just for a minute, to stop and just be present. And the neat author, Hugh Prather, wrote, he tried to do it and he had a little alarm on his watch. And the family said, we can put up with every half an hour, but every 20 minutes is too much to have that alarm go off. Can you share what happens to you in silent meditation? Yes, you feel a release, right? Correct. I had a student, we remember the conversation where we talked about, I was ending a lesson and a student came in, and so it was like three of us, two students and myself, that the farther in you go, the farther out you open yourself to be. The farther out you open yourself to be, the farther in you go. And I love the mystery that I've said this before many times here, we make our own decisions, but we don't do it alone. we're really all in this together. And as you were stating, and Jerry Jampolsky was stating, our oneness is absolutely core. It's our core reality. It's more real than that chair. When Linda asked me to speak about this, part of me said, you know, that's what I'm going to talk about. That my faith is based on what I experienced. I grew up with the Bible and I love the Bible, and I'm glad to be a student of the Bible, but my faith is not based on what someone tells me that I'm reading. It's something that I actually experience. Have you experienced her hugs? Pat and I missed each other for years. There's something that's completely present about you. Well, when we're present with each other, we are showing each other God. And I have a friend who, for at least 3 years, was on the verge of losing her house. Met with him regularly. For 3 years, her husband every day applied for a job and then went to the bank and told them that he had applied and showed them what he had done. So they stuck with him for 3 years because he showed up every day to stay in connection with him, and he applied for jobs every day. I know another lady that took 3 years to find a job. And so I asked the girl, the lady, how did you go through that? I watched you. Well, she didn't use the word, but it was like I just let go. She surrendered. And surrender is a word that I've had to learn to love, because it's felt like just giving up and being a victim all over again. It's not a word that I automatically like. But I watched her not give up. And I'll never forget the day she said, you know, I realized today that I actually love myself. And the light of that has never stopped coming through her, even though she has bipolar problems and sometimes gets really depressed. But if you look, you can see the light shining through. And yeah, I'll share this now. I think I was going to share it later, but I love in the course, if you want to really be encouraged about this particular lesson, read chapter 18 of the Course in Miracles. It's a wonderful chapter. God's not going to put out God's light. So the truth about our source is everywhere. We believe that. And I believe in this affirmation, it's saying you can experience that wherever you turn. We know that we can choose to go into a dream. We can choose to look at darkness. We can choose to hurt each other. We can choose to do our best to ignore the truth that love is real and God is present and that energy is active. We can choose the best we can to ignore it. You can't put it out. And that's, of course, what your belief says. It's if we have a source, and that source is love, even if we choose to ignore it, that love cannot be wiped out. Not possible. And that was one of the early things in becoming a student of Course in Miracles that really grabbed me. That when the child of God decided that he was separate and wanted to be separate,